Okay, you have to decipher the hieroglyphics in the Merneptah stele circa 1200 BC. Palestinian people deserve human rights.
Yeah, it does seem that but when I first saw that was already like a year ago. But like, I remember thinking that it is so ridiculous that that's actually what it's like.
Yeah,
Like that it's just ridiculous.
And yet a year later, we're still dealing with this bullshit. And with that said, for the first time and hopefully not the last time, Rothbone, welcome to Generational Change.
Hi, thank you for having me.
Oh, absolutely. So I have to ask you, did other people think you were Zach Galifianakis?
Oh, I get that nearly every day.
Okay.
Yeah.
So it isn't. I'm not like, all right.
Yes.
That's
Yes.
okay. So where did you come from in doing this? Were you like, I don't know anything about you other than the guy who looks like Zach Galifianakis that does really good videos.
That's fair. I'm a music teacher for many years and a musician as well. And before I started talking about politics, I was making music that was political, and I just went into a phase of I just made a TikTok page and I started talking about politics, and it started to get engagement. And that was the first time I ever had any success with social media. So then October 7th happened, and it sort of fit in with my values and my principles. I thought it was because I've always talked about anti-imperialism, and I've always been very critical of U.S. foreign policy, especially, and domestic policy, and it just became something. I actually didn't really know that much about Israel-Palestine, other than I knew it was a settler colony. I didn't know any of the details, so I felt like, wow, this seems to be a really important thing that's happening, and I should really learn about it. So I picked up Norman Finkelstein's book on Gaza, and I was just floored. I mean, the first 3 pages that I read of it, I was just appalled, and I learned so much, just in his book than anything that I had learned, predictably from corporate media. But I wanted to take what I could do, which is communicate these ideas in a political satirical format, and try to teach Americans around me, because I feel like I come from a culture that's just really ignorant about the rest of the world, and I know these people, so I've went to school with them, I've grown up with them, so I know how they think, and I just feel like I could use my powers for good, so to speak. So that's kind of what I've been trying to do.
Where are you? I'm sorry. Where are you located?
I'm originally from New Orleans. I actually just moved out to Los Angeles a couple weeks ago, really. Not even a month, I don't think.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Oh, it's funny. I'm actually over in Niceville, if you happen to know where that town is, in the panhandle of Florida.
Oh, okay. Niceville.
So, yes,
it's called
not a joke.
Niceville.
It's really called Niceville, and it's a nice town. And so basically, you hop on I-10 and you just go straight across, and it's like
oh, okay, all right. Yeah, the Panhandle. That's really close. To New Orleans, where I'm from. So, yeah.
Well, what we call it here is Floribama. That's
Floribama. Yeah, of course. I know Floribama very well.
You don't have the accent. You don't have that. You don't, because you say you didn't say Nolans. You know, like you. No, you sound just normal.
Yeah, I've been told that too. But if you get around, if I get around my family, I'll start picking it back up,
Right.
And my dad especially. But yeah, I didn't really, I don't know, I didn't really I didn't really pick it up like my parents did, I guess. But.
Yeah. So I just want the way that you do your videos, the way you do it, it's in such a way that it's so not the people who would be offended can't really be offended, because it's like you're being called out by being offended by this, and it's very tame and yet very, very good. So that's what's really cool, because I think in doing it in that way, when it's not so obviously like in your face.
Right.
That's how you don't end up getting shadow banned. That's how you don't end up getting like, all those things, but yet you could still make the point. Like I think it's really good.
Well, I appreciate that. And, people, there's a whole spectrum of how people feel about it. I mean, I get a lot of comments one way or the other, but yeah, I think satire is a useful tool, to really get people to think and put the ideas out effectively into people's minds. So, have you
been called anti-Semite yet?
Oh my goodness, yes.
Okay, good. Welcome.
Welcome to the club.
Join the club. Yeah, right. I was actually, I'm upset that I didn't even make the top 10 from the. I think
I'm
Listen,
annoyed about that Candace Owens thing.
Candace worked really hard for that award, man. I mean, she really did.
I don't understand it. I can't believe it. Who was in contention? Was Norman Finkelstein? Was Abby Martin? Like, there's some really good picks.
Yeah, I think
you got Ta-Nehisi Coates. Like, there's some other people in the mix here.
They left out a lot of good people, and I know. Well, I was one of them. Okay, I was offended.
I feel like that too, right? Like a little bit. I feel like Candace Owens gets anti-Semite of the year. I was like, that's just so wrong. She's never been on the right team until now.
I know.
Like, she's just such a Johnny come lately to like anything resembling the right side
Honestly,
of anything.
I think the only reason why Owens is where she is at this point is because there probably was a conversation with her and Ben Shapiro, and she, as a black woman, finally remembered that she was a black woman in Ben Shapiro's presence, and he probably laced it in such a bigoted way that even she couldn't defend it. It's like, oh God, this guy's fucking crazy.
Right.
And he is crazy. Like, Ben Shapiro was one of the absolute worst scum suckers in the entire independent media.
Are you suggesting that
I'm an anti-Semite, so I can say whatever I want.
I'm a self-loathing Jew. But are you suggesting that Zios are bigots?
Just a little bit. Just a little bit.
Just a little bit. There's quite the cross. Now that's what I call intersectionality.
That's it. And an understatement too. Just a little bit of a bigot.
What's your experience with that? Like, I grew up in South Florida in Jewville. I mean, I grew up thinking everybody was basically Jewish. That was just how it was. And it was very pro-Israel. And so I grew up with that.
Yeah.
And so my story is kind of different than a lot of people. Like, New Orleans, although there's definitely New Orleans Jews. I know some.
Absolutely. But I think New Orleans is primarily, oddly enough, even though it's deep in the heart of Southland, it's Catholic, and I grew up Catholic.
Right.
I take the George Carlin joke, which is I was Catholic until I reached the age of reason, around 7 or 8.
Right.
Because I never could understand. I mean, my dad was very much like had to bring us to church every Sunday, and it rubbed me the wrong way, and I sort of didn't really care too much for religion. But not that and I have to remind people, it doesn't nobody cares about religion, I mean, and nobody cares about your religion. We care about ethnic cleansing, I mean, people care about religion. I'm not saying that people don't care about religion. I'm just saying when it comes to this, like, to make this whole thing, this whole genocide about religion, it's disingenuous, and it's a lie. So, I mean, to switch the conversation to be about that, I always try to bring it back, it's like, it has nothing to do with all this ideology,
It's fundamentally extremely anti-Semitic, actually.
Absolutely. Yeah.
This concept, because it's inextricably like wanting to link Judaism with this, white settler colony project.
Yes.
And it's very intentional. And it's a place where the secular white, like, imperialist Jews, I mean, they're Jews, but they're secular. They don't really care. Basically merge together with Christian evangelicals and other forms of anti-Semites who they would otherwise hate, because they both support the same thing. And yet that doesn't give them pause. But then there's no problem for those people who affiliate with someone like John Hagee and other complete anti-Semites. And those people are okay.
Mm-hmm.
But we're the anti-Semites. So it's just very I find the whole thing of like their whole mindset to be, and it's very anti-Jewish.
That's a great point. Yeah.
Jen has brought up time and again that the experience of how I would say indoctrinating the Zionist movement is, particularly in South Florida and in New York City, Brooklyn in particular, is a lot different than the West Coast. What's been your experience? Because obviously Los Angeles is one of the biggest Jewish populations in the country. What has been sort of the fervor on the ground there? Do you get the sense that there is an understanding of what's really going on right now, or do you get the sense that you're kind of amongst a lot of Zionists as well?
And I just got here, and it's not like I've been going out on the town, getting the pulse of everyone here. But there's a Palestinian flag flying right outside, like in the building next door. Like, it's big, and I would like to think so. Okay, I would like to think that the conversation has, the people here that are getting it. But as far as like personal interactions, I mean, unfortunately, I think that there probably is still a strong Zionist element in all of the United States. Yeah. I mean, I was in Miami recently, and they are very much pro-Zionism, and it's like Zionism central, just a little bit.
Yeah.
But, I don't see that, I guess, and maybe it's because of the sprawl here, and I'm just downtown, and but. It's not like I'm living in Hollywood or any like pro-Zionist communities, I guess, but I think it's not so. In Miami, you could definitely feel it, and here I don't think I feel it as much.
Yeah, I'm suffocated by it.
Yeah.
I'm suffocated by it. Oh my God, my Pilates studio. I play what I call it psychological warfare. So this shit started going down with the Israelis at my Pilates studio with me because they saw that I went to the march over a year ago. And I don't know, like, these are not people that I even know. They just saw me on social media. Whatever. I'm not even on social media. Peter does my social media. But anyway.
Yeah, I have to deal with all the bullshit. So
you're not on social media. Yeah.
So they started talking shit about me, these women, and that don't even know me. So I'm like, okay, well then I'm going to give them something to talk about. So I wear watermelon shirts to Pilates every single time that I go to Pilates. I am constantly wearing watermelon stuff. So, but here's the thing. And I'd love to show up in the keffiyeh. But the problem is, it's like, I feel like if I push it too far, then I'm asking for the owner to pull me aside and say, you're making so many women uncomfortable. We would appreciate if you would leave the political stuff at home, even though I'm just wearing shirts with watermelon specifically that are just literally shirts with watermelon.
Well, it's very traumatic for them. You have to understand, inconveniencing them in any way, having them to think, in a different manner is just like, it's, so you got to handle it with kid gloves,
That's the problem. Mm-hmm. And what if they, and if I really get into it, at the end of the day, I am not willing to forego my studio. So, and plus I feel like I'm more effective being across from them, across the room, wearing watermelons, like while we're doing class. Like, I feel like that's more effective use of me than if I weren't there at all.
Right. Yeah.
I would definitely be curious from where you stand from when you made that viral video. And obviously you have caught a lot of heat, including, I think, some banning circumstances because of the fact that you are so outspoken about what's going on in Palestine right now. And even at this moment, when it is obvious that hundreds of thousands of them have been mass murdered, and yet you still see these exceptionally privileged individuals who constantly talk about how they're afraid. Oh no, I think some people may throw tomatoes at us at some point. We always knew that there was a privileged portion of our culture, but it is just wide open in everybody's faces now. And I would imagine that your experience over this past year has been quite, I would imagine, eye-opening as well.
Absolutely. I obviously had a lot of backlash for using my platform, which has really no bearing on what the Palestinians are actually going through. I feel a little awkward when people are saying, well, you must be getting all this heat or whatever. I mean, I always say it's like the least that I can do, given my understanding of the world and my skill set. It's like, this is the least I can do is talk about what the people are going through in Palestine, because they can't, they're not able to get that message. And you know, I can communicate that to people here effectively because I'm in this culture. And you know, I think that the American working class, if we actually did organize against the genocide and other important issues, we could actually change things. But you know, it's also been real positive. Like you know, I've been grateful to have opportunities to go and speak and you know, amplify the message, and met some amazing, wonderful people along the way. So you know, I'm extremely grateful for you know, as some of, you know, like you mentioned, the banning and all these things, like being restricted and censored. But I'm trying to say that it's also a lot of positivity that has happened in my life since for the past year, which is paradoxically, you know, stands, you know, juxtaposed from what's happening in the Middle East, obviously. So I don't know if I answered that question very well.
You
but-
did. It's sort of like, it's always bittersweet when you're in this space and in these movements, because the things that bring people together are usually horrible.
Yes,
And
right.
and that's just unfortunate, like how that works.
Yeah.
But the bigger that the web gets, and the more like we build coalitions and everybody's sort of networks connects with everybody's networks, that's the revolution. That's what we need to be happening, because it's not going to come from electoral politics. And, you know, again, we're not condoning violence. You know, people, you know, call me if you want me to do that privately. But it's like, you know, this class of people, these elite people, have made it clear that other things are not working. I love when the same people who are so like clutching their pearls are the same people that think that the protests, the pro-Palestinian encampments were so, oh my God, those are so violent. The Jewish students feel uncomfortable. It's, you know, when you leave people with no other options, this is what's going to happen.
Right.
And every single one of these instances brings more and more people like us together in this sort of class war, because that's ultimately what we're in. We're in a class war, and it's global, and we see it everywhere. And the more links, I feel like the more links in our network, the better we're served.
Absolutely. You took the words right out of my mouth. I mean, beginning with, you know, that it's not going to come from, the revolution's not going to, true change doesn't come from politics. It doesn't come from the electorate, you know.
No.
It comes from economic action in the, you know, by the working class. And yeah, I think with what I do with satire and all this, it's always interesting an angle to expose the double standard that is in American society, that there are different rules for the rich as for the poor. And, you know, you bring up the point about violins. You know, I always think about Michael Parenti's.
Gilda Radner.
Gilda Radner? Oh, is that from Gilda?
Violins in the media? You don't, I don't know what, you're younger than me, I think. Did you watch, like, you don't know any Gilda
I know
Radner
Gilda.
on SNL?
I know of Gilda Radner. She was an SNL cast member.
Right. Well, there was this thing, and I cannot remember if it was, I think it was Rosanna Dana. And one of the skits was she didn't understand the problem what everyone was having with all of these violins in the media. And it was, yeah, that was the premise of it. So when you said that, that's what came to mind.
And I'm doing that because I know we're on YouTube. You know, I know that. So I always try to censor myself and the best I can, but I usually am a little too little too late. But yeah, you know, it's the violins of that it's basically what I was trying to say was that the violins of the ruling class is deemed democracy promotion. Any violins that promotes or that upends the privileged social relations of the ruling class, well, that's T-wordism. There's another censorship word for you. But yeah.
Well, we do try to, you know, mind our P's and Q's, but at the same time, we cannot deny the impact of what Luigi Mangione has done and what that is ultimately going to result in as we go forward. And I think that the other viral clip that you made that I think is extremely relevant, which Jen has been talking about in terms of what really needs to happen, we're going to play it right now.
Okay.
A general strike in the United States? Because under capitalism, genocides are profitable. The exact reason for a general strike lies in the very definition of capitalism to begin with. Private ownership of the means of production concurrent with the exploitation of labor. Baked into the capitalist's equation, therein lies the antidote. For a capitalist's greatest strength is simultaneously their greatest weakness. Profits. Capitalists can only turn a profit by depending on you, the worker. If there are no engineers to build the weapons, no drivers or operators to deliver them, no longshoremen to load or unload them, no technicians to provide logistics, no administrators to push the paperwork, no clerks, no operators, no workers, just severed links in the supply chain, then the mass murder cannot continue, and the exploitation of the American working class can stop. Genocides are completely destructive, but for all of the devastation that they wrought, there is exponentially more organizational power and creative energy put into producing one behind the scenes. We are the producers, but we don't have to produce this. So in solidarity with the working class and in solidarity with the Palestinians, I support a general strike.
So May 1st, 2028.
Yes, May 1st, 2028. You know, actually, also December 19th, 2024, in a couple days, I'm going to be speaking. I made that video for an account called General Strike for Resignation, and they're an organization that you know, is basically trying to get the word out about general strikes, and we're doing a virtual town hall with Chris Smalls, who's one of my heroes.
We've had him on. We've had him on we had him on before.
Way before.
They even had organized. Yeah, we're old.
No, I like how you're like, no, I knew him when.
I knew him. No, but he's also connected to the reason why we no longer have a website, because we were being sued by Reuters for, ironically, Reuters wanted to sue me for using a picture that they took of Chris Smalls.
Oh my God.
That we had on our website under our change maker section. And I'm like, the irony of that is the picture that's the issue. And I'm like, you know what? It's not even worth it. I'm just taking it down. We don't even need our website anyway.
That's pretty base though. That happened to you. That's pretty cool. So
and I would
also a flex right there, for sure.
And I would also say that the relevance of this particular message is one that I think comes full circle with Mangione, because no matter what we try, and I know Jen hates when I say this, but I am a participant in the capitalist system. I'm in commercial real estate.
I don't hate when you say it. I just disagree with it and think that it's misguided information.
Fair enough. I'm gonna, I can still acknowledge that the system is broken, and that much like the people that still try to defend the system and say the problem with socialism is that you eventually run out of other people's money, of course, not acknowledging that they know what they're talking about.
Right.
What I say about capitalism is this. The problem with capitalism is that you eventually run out of people to exploit. And that's essentially what the system is built on.
And other people's money. I mean, it's propped up by, state funding and, government bailouts. So it's all public money that they paradoxically, hypocritically need. There's so many contradictions in capitalism. I could go on and on, but it's so defined. It's so important to share these hypocrisies, I think. But yeah, getting back to Luigi Mangione, I mean, it's that double standard. I mean, what I'm trying to tell people is that social murder is murder. Economic violence is violence.
It's violence. Yes. Oh my God.
Yeah. How do we not see those, that double standard, that it's okay to deny people healthcare and kill them. And when the poor fight back, well, that's, a brazen targeted attack. And, what a ruthless M-worder. I'm trying to not say
no.
that.
How long have you been in this space, like the sort of anti-capitalist? Because, for me, I've always been at some point I know I was in the libtard category. I'll have to own that.
Oh,
I
yeah.
voted for Bill Clinton twice. I
Yeah.
did what I did. Like I
Yeah.
can't.
And I
whatever.
still appreciate you doing that. I'll never forget it.
So I have to like, and I'll have to. I'm atoning for that shit probably for eternity. But like, when was it that you? I mean, you said you're a music teacher, so you're not a philosophy teacher. You're not like a Marxist economics professor. So like, what got you into that sort of mindset?
That's a great question. I feel like there's two aspects to this answer for this question. I think consciously it happened in 2020 for me, going through COVID, just the lockdown. I poured into Noam Chomsky lectures, and then just started diving into leftist literature. And it just resonated with me. And I think once you hear the truth about the state of the world, because I think everybody's grasping for answers, everybody's trying to make some sort of sense of what's happening. And, that was the moment, I guess, when I had time to just sit down and do nothing, where I started to dig and think more critically about my world, that it's very much resonated with me. And I just became fascinated. I mean, it felt like a fire was lit in my mind. Like I just had to learn as much as I could about all of these important issues. And, given my skills as a teacher, I guess, in being able to I had to learn to be an effective communicator. And, being creative, I guess, also, it just led me to want to make content about the things. I've always sort of made content about things that I'm passionate about. And at that time, and then, if you had caught me in a different point in my life, it would have been about something else, but, at that time, it's like, okay, that's what took off. So I'm sort of leaning into that now, because I feel like it's working, but, and I feel like it's important. But I also think that it started, I've always been, whether I knew it or not, anti-capitalist. I mean, I've always rejected this political economy somehow. And I think that's what drove me to become a musician and then ultimately a teacher. Because I came from a well-to-do family. I don't know what the term upper middle class means anymore, but
I don't either.
but maybe you could ascribe that to my family and my socioeconomic status as I was growing up. I mean, I went to a nice school. My stepdad was a CEO of a vending company. I mean, I could have certainly climbed the corporate ladder if I really wanted to, but I was just repulsed by the whole thing. And I never really knew why. I just knew that capitalism was just gross, and I wanted nothing to do with it. And getting back to your point about how you're into commercial real estate, so you're partaking in capitalism, I would say capitalism is compulsory. I mean, we're all taught to fend for ourselves, and there is no ethical consumption in capitalism, and we're working for corporations in one way or another. So I don't fault working class people for trying to come up, in this political economy.
Well, it may be a limited amount of principle, but one thing I do adhere to are certain principles within the confines of commercial real estate. There are certain people.
He boycotts certain nation state people who are involved in genocidal behavior.
Oh, okay.
So if they're
He
involved,
doesn't work with certain said people that support that.
Yeah. That's
and I make a point. Not
that's
to.
good.
And that is something where, thankfully, I'm not in South Florida anymore, because anytime I would go to conferences, particularly in Miami or Fort Lauderdale, that's who's there. And they dominate the industry. And this is part of the reason why they are able to get away with this, because when you get right down to brass tacks, this is all about money and power. There is no hidden agenda. There's no hidden agenda in Gaza. There's no hidden agenda in Ukraine. There's no hidden agenda in Taiwan. Everything is all connected to money and power. It's
Right.
like Lindsey Graham coming out like a couple of weeks ago acknowledging that there is upwards of $8 trillion worth of natural resources in Western Ukraine. I'm like, we've been saying this for how long now?
Yeah.
you're just starting to come around to it. And then you find out that BlackRock is basically planting the seeds to do all of the rebuild in Ukraine once things are finally settled. It's
How nice of them.
but the
Mhm.
propaganda is just incredible. And I think what your intentions, which I think are great, is to just cut through the bullshit and just say the Palestinian people deserve human rights, and every which way that they can try to rationalize, because let's be honest, that's what real racism is. There is a real inherent bigotry in Zionism that believes that we are the chosen people, therefore we are superior and we could do what we want.
Mhm.
And all those brownies out in the Middle East, they can all die for all we care.
Mhm.
That is real egotism in our culture that I hope is getting broken down.
Yeah.
And that I think is changing. And I think that because of the videos that you've made, I think that impact is definitely being felt. Do you feel that is, however slowly it may be happening, but that we are in fact turning a corner as far as that's concerned?
I 1000% believe that. And I do believe that there's power in social media and changing the culture around these topics. I wonder, I wonder if it's enough. It's just disheartening, every day waking up, seeing another Israeli airstrike. It just keeps going on. It's been over a year. I know that I'm making somewhat of an impact. I don't know how big it is, or if it's certainly not enough. I mean, we need to all be doing more, and it's a joint effort. But I do get a lot of positive feedback from strangers that message me saying how, not only did I change their minds, but now they're changing other people's minds, that are family members or friends. And so that means a lot to me to know that it's had an effect. But yeah, I do wonder if it's enough, and what I
It
should
has
be
an
doing.
effect.
Yeah.
If you want to know like something where I know for a fact it has an effect, it has effect on the Palestinians that are stuck in Gaza that still get communication, because every time that they know that there's people that are standing in solidarity, it does matter to them. We know people here who are connected to people there, and I know that that's something that they see, and that it's important to them to know that the world has not forgotten them. So it like that alone is extremely important.
Absolutely.
I think it also speaks to a video clip that I'd like to play for you to comment on us with before you go, because we do want to do a segment that I think is very relevant to this, because as you mentioned, the problems with capitalism. No greater example than where we stand today right now, which is on the precipice of a great awakening of people realizing that we must have single payer healthcare in this country. That is essentially what Luigi Mangione. It's amazing how the Italians, the names, they all roll together.
He's only the alleged, by the way.
Only alleged.
I don't even know if I saw a Moida, is all I'm saying.
Yeah, well, you know what? And here's the thing. I so much, as someone who, one of the things I find fascinating in law is jury selection. I so much want to be on that jury selection.
Oh,
like,
God,
I
yeah.
want to help them. First of all, I do not see how you're going to find 12 individuals that don't have a personal grievance
That's
in
a
some
good
way
point.
against health insurance industry. I don't see how you're going to find 12. You could switch venue all you want. You can go wherever you want. Where you find, you think you're going to find 12 people?
Yeah.
And at this point, this is a like snitches get stitches situation. Like, people are not having this shit anymore. And I just think that that his attorney, first of all, my understanding is she's fierce.
Really? Okay, good.
Oh, and they've been getting donations. Apparently over $100,000 have already come in.
Yeah,
from
I
people
saw
donating.
that. I saw that. I just
Yeah.
wish he didn't have the things on him that he had on him when he was taken in. That's all.
Personally, I think he meant to get caught.
I
That's
think,
what
well, you would have to think, right? I mean, either that or,
So you're thinking they're going to have to be able to find him guilty, because even though you don't want to, you're going to see all of these facts and
Yeah.
Honestly, man,
I think
this
there's so
is
much. This is glorious for
the
like
fact
someone
that
like me.
the fact that this is playing out so much like the Joker movie. Like it really is the Joker movie come to life. And one of the first things that we put out on social media was that meme that basically said, "Are you telling me that you think it's funny that a United
Yeah.
Health CEO was shot?" And he's like, "I do, Murray, and I'm tired of pretending
tired
that
of
it isn't."
pretending.
And it's like It was just so much.
true.
And so
Well-
one of the things that I experienced that, Jen, have I mentioned where I went to college? Have I mentioned that before? Where did I go to college?
He went to Rutgers. Okay, so this is where I was going. David said
Oh,
something about
okay.
finding jurors that'll find him.
Rutgers.
Yes,
All right.
they
Fancy.
will convict him of something. Yes, they will convict him of something. But what that something is, based on
Carrying
how
a
good
firearm
this
in
attorney is,
carrying a firearm in New York City. You can't do that.
this attorney could get this to where, yes, he gets convicted of something. But let's see what that is. Yes,
I think
they might have to.
I think it'll be riding a bike while Italian. That's-
That's a good one. We should all come up with like what could be really good charges for him. Because no, that's what's going to happen is she's going to get shit all sorts of dismissed for all different reasons. First of all, we're going to have chain of custody problems. That's always fun. We'll have a battle of the experts. That'll be fun. Like there's a lot of good stuff here. But I just don't think that he's going to get found guilty of anything that's putting him away for what he would normally get put away for.
And as long as we are continuing to talk about him, the more this conversation will happen that breaks down the entire. I mean, listen, we could talk all day and night about how the capitalist system has reached its expiration date, that we are heading in a direction where we better get some type of a social democracy. Otherwise, we are heading in a very dangerous direction because of the desperation that people are feeling. And so the reason I bring up Rutgers is because when I was a student there, lo and behold, one of the most powerful big pharmaceutical corporations was right up the road on Route 1 in South Brunswick. And who is that mega pharmaceutical corporation? It is none other than Johnson & Johnson. And so this is a little capitalist story about what happens when there is no regulation. And if you remember, there was a cancerous agent that was in their baby powder. Well, credit to More Perfect Union, a very good group that does a lot of solid work regarding labor. This is what's been going on at Johnson & Johnson. May they all burn in hell.
And get by with these types of tactics, then the American people are in serious danger.
Most likely, my mother used the powder. That was the big thing back then in the 40s and 50s.
What's that stuff? Johnson's baby powder.
I have 2 girls, and I also used it on them. And then in turn, they used it on their sons, their children, too.
Women like Marianne trusted Johnson & Johnson's baby powder for generations. It wasn't just a product, it was a ritual passed down from mother to child. The marketing worked so well that by the late 1960s, an internal memo crowned baby powder the cornerstone of Johnson & Johnson's entire baby business. The product itself was simple: talc, a mineral mined from the earth. But in 1966, academics published a troubling discovery. Talc had no medicinal value. Worse, it was linked to 3 deaths. The warning made its way through Johnson & Johnson's executive offices.
There was a concern starting in the 1970s about asbestos being in talc because of testing done by the FDA.
That's Jessica Dean. She's a plaintiff's attorney. For over a decade, she's been fighting Johnson & Johnson in court over the deadly discovery of asbestos in talc, the mineral used in baby powder.
The problem is that talc and asbestos often grow together. It has been known for decades to be a common impurity in talc.
Asbestos causes mesothelioma, a cancer that destroys organ linings from within. It's also linked to ovarian cancer. No amount of processing can make it safe.
You're mixing a carcinogen into a powder product designed to be used on children and designed to be used in our homes. And that's the problem at the core of what Johnson & Johnson did.
The government had concerns pretty early. In 1972, they called a meeting to review an FDA study that found asbestos in a huge chunk of products on store shelves. 5 members of J&J went, along with some other industry groups. And this is where the paper trail picks up. According to the meeting summary, the industry lobbyists pushed to keep the FDA study secret, saying it could cause great economic hardship for the companies. J&J said that the government's positive asbestos tests were faulty, and that their own tests came back negative. That's more or less the company's position on testing to this day.
They will boast, look at how many tests we've done that don't show asbestos. And they use tests that were underpowered. A simple example I can think of is if you are trying to weigh a feather, you don't use a bathroom scale. It's not going to show up. You need to have something that is more sensitive.
Coming out of that meeting, the government agreed to let companies self-test, and Johnson & Johnson promised to share their own records, swearing they found nothing concerning.
When they made that promise, they had already done testing revealing asbestos in the actual samples from Dr. Lewin at the FDA. In fact, a third of the fibers in baby powder were tremolite asbestos. There were over 400 samples evidencing asbestos in talc that J&J knew about after they promised our government will give you everything, and we now know they didn't give them any of it.
Jessica isn't the only one alleging this. At this point, it's more or less common knowledge. Real people paid the price.
Never thought that I would have cancer. It was a shock. First time, the tumor was the size of a cantaloupe.
Marianne beat ovarian cancer in 2008, only to see it return 4 years later. The subsidiary at the start is part of something called the Texas Two-Step. Here, a super rich and profitable company like J&J creates a subsidiary. They take that subsidiary and they register it in Texas. The subsidiary holds everything related to the baby powder, the good stuff, the sales and profits, and the bad, the lawsuits. Then, using a quirk in Texas law, they split it in two.
And instead of calling it a division, they called that a merger. It's called a divisive merger.
One company gets all the money.
Divisive merger.
Let's call it good company. The other gets the lawsuits. Let's call that bad company. And then they take that good company, move it back to New Jersey. And the bad company, that's Red River Talc. That number in Texas I called, they basically received their mail. And Johnson & Johnson takes that bad company and declares bankruptcy in Texas.
That's what's at stake here, is will bankruptcy prove to be an escape hatch for corporate misconduct?
Wow.
Bankruptcy doesn't mean failure. It's a timeout. Everything pauses while you fix what's broken. The catch? Courts watch your every move. Real companies move fast in bankruptcy. They don't want a court telling them how to run their business. But Red River Talc, it's just paper. There's no factories, there's no business to watch over. But when it declares bankruptcy, those cancer lawsuits freeze. And that's exactly what J&J wants.
They can hold, the victims hostage. They just use it as a weapon.
When we're talking about people who have had some sort of asbestos exposure or similar allegations, the claimants are dying.
That's Melissa Jacoby. She's a law professor and expert on America's bankruptcy system.
In the meantime, all those jury trials are being canceled.
J&J claims this is about fairness, that the bankruptcy creates an orderly process for victims. And if you want to see how fair it really is, just look at what happened at the paper giant Georgia Pacific. In 2017, Georgia Pacific dumped all of their asbestos cases into a subsidiary and declared bankruptcy in North Carolina.
Those cancer victims have not received a dime. That case has just been held hostage since 2017.
Here's the kicker. While the victims waited, many died. Meanwhile, Georgia Pacific has paid their parent company, Koch Industries, $3 billion in dividends, triple what they offered victims.
I didn't realize how long that was, but that's really good. Was that More Perfect Union?
Yes, and that was cut down like a third or half.
I don't know how exactly, but just my initial take on that video is my vibes-based analysis is that that video was anti-Semitic.
Just
slightly. And I think that we, haven't the corporations suffered enough? I mean, won't someone please think about corporations? Because they do so much good, and yet they're constantly being targeted in the press. They're constantly being chastised. And,
they can't get a fair shake.
They really can't. And it's upsetting. And it, what do you guys want them to do? You want these CEOs to sell their mega yacht? Have you no heart?
How are they going to live?
Yeah, well, Woody Johnson, friend of the Donald, he's a great friend, great person.
Nice.
So he is worth $3.33 billion as the primary shareholder of Johnson & Johnson. And he, of course, is the principal owner of the New York Jets. It would be ashamed if he had to sell his NFL franchise because lawsuits just continue to flood because of wrongful death suits, which is what should be thrown at them. I remember as an 80s kid seeing the Johnson & Johnson baby powder white bottle. Oh, yeah. I remember it. How could you not? It was sold in the hundreds of millions. And all the while they knew that this was poisoning people. But we are going to figure out a way to scurry the law, which is what these mega corporations always do. That's why they say, what do you call 1,000 lawyers? Sorry, Jen, chained together at the bottom of the ocean. There's a reason that joke comes about. Because even if these attorneys, they know what they're doing is wrong, they always hide behind this, well, legally it's allowed. So I don't have any morality with this.
But didn't you guys just have a lawyer on your show, Steven Donziger? Isn't he but he's a good lawyer. He's one of the good lawyers.
He's one of the good ones.
He's a good lawyer.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, look, it's funny because I've talked about this before. I went to law school because I wanted to lobby for a nonprofit. I actually wanted to be a lobbyist.
Wow.
But for me, it was about working for somebody like Barry Scheck at the Innocence Project. Like I had thoughts about like, people think lobbying is so horrible. I'm like, no, the lobbying isn't the problem. We actually need lobbyists. You don't want Congress people writing legislation on agriculture. I assure you, you
Right.
don't want that. That is not anything.
It's lobbying for who? I always got to go back to that question. For who?
Exactly. Exactly. And what is it? And the fact that there doesn't need to be a money exchange.
Mm-hmm.
There could be education, right? Well, that's why I went to law school. So yes, I am a lawyer, but I'm a good lawyer.
One of the good ones, of
Like
course. I would have,
Vincent, like Vincent LaGuardia Gambini.
And the one thing one thing I noticed in that video, what I was thinking was, didn't Exxon Mobil do the same thing in the 70s? Like they had internally,
1977.
They conducted studies on like what oil drilling was going to do to the environment, and then I don't know the particulars, but they basically wiped that under the rug.
Basically what the report found is that there was conclusive evidence that the constant drilling for crude oil was causing a spike in the surface temperatures on the planet. And they basically suppressed that report during the Carter administration, and it never came to light. Mm-hmm. They just were allowed to get away with it.
Yeah.
And while I do appreciate the work that the soon to be departed former President Carter did for Habitat for Humanity, appreciate all the homes that he built. He did a lot of really effed up things during his administration.
Right.
And being able to suppress that particular report, it's earth shattering.
Yeah.
It really is. And we are going to pay. We are paying as we
Absolutely.
speak.
And the poor will pay first,
Always.
Yeah.
Well, that's why. And listen, we've had David Sirota on the podcast. We have been trying to get Adam McKay on for a while, but Don't Look Up was a documentary. It wasn't a movie.
I never did see that, but I should.
Oh, you have to see it.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
Listen, I am not a fan.
It's so freaking funny.
I am not a fan of Jonah Hill in any way, shape, or form.
He was even really funny in that.
He is really, really good in that.
Okay.
I guess he's trying to be.
It's interesting that that's who you pick out of that whole cast to think. Like, there's so many. I mean, you've got Meryl Streep.
Well, Jennifer Lawrence was fantastic in that movie. I thought that Cate Blanchett,
oh my God,
Krasinski was absolutely spot on.
Yeah, you have to watch it.
Okay, I gotta watch it.
So
yeah, definitely recommend it.
So
well, you're gonna watch. Yeah, you're gonna watch, and you're gonna be like, "Holy fuck!"
It's a documentary. That's what it's like. It kind of
a mockumentary. Yeah,
it's like basically making fun of the fact that we're just like the truth is right there. Everything's so obvious, but just don't look at it. Right.
Right. Absolutely. We're all gonna die, but just don't.
No, it's definitely our it's this generation's. This is Spinal Tap. Like that is exactly.
Okay. First of all, we don't know what generation. I'm X and he's a millennial.
I'm a millennial as well. I'm 38 years old. Yeah.
Okay, so you're with him. Yeah.
There you go. So, sorry, Jen.
Don't be sorry. I know how cool we are. The Gen X people are the ones that do not and I know that you've seen that content when people start talking. Do not talk shit about Gen X.
And
I stay clear. I don't want no trouble.
You've seen some of those people for there's all these Gen X content creators that it's just so funny, but don't start with us. We're the last generation of feral children. Nobody was allergic to fucking gluten. Like she went off on this whole thing. It's so funny.
Imagine how much microplastics is in a Gen Xer. I mean, it's got to be an obscene amount.
Yeah.
You think? But our food was better for a longer period of time.
Oh, maybe so.
You know what I mean? Like our stuff was
trade-off.
cleaner. Like when I was younger, our red peppers were healthier.
Okay.
Well, not only that, but that's also why, as it comes full circle, I don't want to hear anything from anybody about how RFK this or RFK that. You have allowed it to get to this point where somebody like him has to step in.
Yep.
You have had ample opportunity to do something about this. And then I come along and I tell you that if you don't read the labels on your food, especially those bags of chips that you eat every day, you are poisoning yourself. And it's like, yes, he's right. We are.
Dude, your impressions are spot on.
He
very
does a
impressed.
few. He has the masks. He does a few really good ones. And it's something.
But I don't have the mask of the former governor
I
of
don't love the
California.
Arnold.
Imagine if
No,
he
he-
was the president of the United States, we'd probably be in better shape than having that Donald Trump right now.
Yeah.
His best is Bernie.
Well, I think you're doing a good job. I think the shows are, I think that they're very educational, they're very important, and I think you should definitely continue doing what you're doing, because it is very important that people get their news somehow. And if they get it in, through the TikTok is what they call it, that's okay. That's a good place.
That's okay. That's okay. I'm always impressed by that because I can't do impressions. So I mean, kudos to you. That's talent.
You could do Zach Galifianakis. Like you could totally pull
maybe
that
that's
off.
just a natural, I just exude that energy, right?
He is honestly, I look back now on, on The Hangover, and I realized that he really carried that movie. Like he was just.
He's so freaking funny.
Thank you.
No, Between Two Ferns.
I worked so hard on that movie. Thank you guys for acknowledging.
Yes.
Appreciate
It's
that.
Where do you teach? Seriously, where do you teach? And wait, what's your name? What's your real name?
My real name is Andrew.
Okay.
Yeah.
Andrew. And where do you teach?
I actually don't teach anymore ever. Like I taught for a while in New Orleans, at a private school, and then I quit that job because I was literally making no money. And I talk about this a lot on stream because it's like teachers get paid dirt, and I was making like $32,000 a year, and then by the time I left, it was like $40,000 a year, which was still just like breadcrumbs. So, and I realized that I was making more money just teaching private piano lessons after school than I was teaching full classes throughout the entire day. So I was like, screw this. So I then just started teaching privately and setting my own rates, and still pursuing music. Like I did a lot of playing piano in like jazz clubs and hotels and stuff, and having residencies in New Orleans and stuff like that. But I've just been like a gig, musician for whether it's a piano lesson or actual music gig. I've just been doing that for years and years. And then more recently, just with social media, I've just been able to not have to focus on that less as I get more opportunities, being a political commentator, if you will.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. So where'd you go to music school?
Well, I went to, I went to the University of Mississippi, believe it or not.
All this.
Yeah. And I studied piano performance there as well as English. So I had like a English and piano performance degree. And I loved classical music. I still love classical music. I'm a classical music nerd. But that was, sort of what I studied, classical piano, Mozart, that kind of stuff. Yeah.
Yeah, I say it all the time. The greatest thing I've ever done in my whole life is I have birthed a musician. And my son went to school for music and he plays classical piano.
Oh, wow.
And now he's working for the man in a way that I don't need to get into, but he still is a musician and it's the coolest thing ever. And when he's home, it's always classical music. So yeah.
What's his favorite composer?
He loves Chopin.
Wrong.
He plays like, I just love listening to him play, and he plays by ear. Like he had to sort of like fake it and pretend he could read music for a while. Now he can because he went to school for it. It's
sight reading is
amazing.
tough. It didn't come naturally for me either, but yeah.
Yeah. I just appreciate the music thing. But so now what he's doing is real estate risk analysis in portfolios for a company called Chatham Financial. And they're a niche company. So their clients are Blackstone. That's one of their clients. Exactly.
Sorry.
You see, now that is shit that I don't involve myself in under any
That is what he's doing now. And I just,
Not good.
Not good.
But
Really not good.
Somebody said Bach. Bach was a charlatan, okay? Bach was a complete charlatan.
Here's a little
I
fact.
like when we meet like young people that like classical music.
Yeah.
Here's a little factoid that I have tried to emphasize to people, that if you don't realize how we are, and again, this gets back to why I actually, look, there's a lot of things with RFK that I disagreed with, but the thing that he talked about that I thought was what he really knocked out of the park when he ran is the fact that private equity led by BlackRock / Blackstone, State Street, and Vanguard, within the decade will own 60% of the single family homes in this country. And because the system is completely broken for regular people, you could say it's working the way it's intended to work for the powers that be. I can agree with that.
Yeah.
But as long as that is going to persist, there is no getting out of this hellscape. And if you need any more proof that that this is what needs to change, that we must break away from this system, is that those companies that I just mentioned, they are the biggest shareholders by far in United Health.
Yeah. Oh, and not just that company, but like every company. If we're referring to BlackRock and, you know, Vanguard, obviously we know that. I actually asked RFK in a virtual town hall about capitalism, like just to see, you know, I was very much like, I phrased the question being very anti-capitalist and saying, you know, can we reform this? And he basically gave me some answer along the lines of, well, it's not capitalism, it's corporatism. We need to, you know, reform it. But you know, you're telling me
that's a distinction without a difference.
What's that?
That's a distinction without a difference.
Yeah, that's right. It's like it materially amounts to nothing. He's just paying lip service to like, oh yeah, it's bad, but we can, you know, just a few more years of reform, that'll do the trick.
And I do think that he cares, but at the end of the day, he's a Kennedy. You're talking about a person that literally comes from one of the most dynastic families of the 20th century.
It's a good word. Yeah.
Yeah, it is a good word.
There's just like, oh, you complimented me, Jen? Oh, that's
I did. It's a good word for you.
I like this. I like this this dynamic here. It's very dynastic, by the way.
We've been together for 5 years. It's quite dynastic. I want to tell you my Bach story because this is the thing. I was taking my son, my musician son, for his 18th birthday. I took him to New York, and I gave there was a concert that he wanted to see, and it was on the same night and this was Eric Clapton's last show in this country, and he played Madison Square Garden. So that's what I wanted to see. That was the night. That was what I wanted to see. What did I go see that Reese wanted to see was Bach's Brandenburg concertos played, at this like off whatever place with a harpsichord, mind you.
Oof.
And then there was dancing with it. It was actually really pretty. I will give him that. But I'm like, I wanted to go see Eric
in between
Clapton.
the naps. It was nice. You were taking.
It was nice, but it was Eric Clapton, and now I'm never getting to see Eric Clapton, right? Like that's the thing.
Yeah.
Well, I do like
Bach.
I do like the.
I know you could go hear Bach any day of the week. You know, it's
thank you.
You can't go, but I think Eric Clapton. Not to cut you off, but Eric Clapton is a Zionist, as I understand. That ruins it for me. Like my favorite band is Radiohead, and I can never listen to them again. Because
it sucks when that happens, right?
Yeah.
I know that really does suck. That's why we used to do our intro to our show like a Seinfeld episode. We used to celebrate Festivus every year and have the airing
Why don't you people like me anymore? I just
you're a
don't get it.
douchebag. So now that's completely ruined. So now we don't have a new intro. Intro.
But here's the only defense of Seinfeld.
I had to change my ringtone for him.
If you didn't know that Jerry was a colossal prick of the highest order forever, and you just figured that out once he showed that he was a Zionist, it would have been like, no, I would have been shocked if you weren't a Zionist.
I know.
You know, that's the hard part.
I can get over douchey. Douchey doesn't have being a prick is like I could still.
It sucks because it sucks because Jason Alexander, from everything I've read and heard, is that he's a really good guy and he's not a Zionist. And it's like, but
doesn't matter.
You kind of need to speak up in this moment. You need to say that this is not acceptable.
Not being a Zionist is not sufficient.
Yeah.
I agree. It's not enough.
Being neutral to fascism is the same as siding with fascism.
Exactly.
And you know, Zionism is the new NAZI-ism. So
It is.
it's like
I
there's
call
no
them
redeemable.
I call them Zioans.
Trust me,
Yeah.
and Jenna was ribs on me for this, but you know, Springsteen was my musical hero, and he's always been.
That
But
got thrown to shit.
but
is
where
he?
I come,
He's also.
he's not a Zionist, but he's not going to speak out against it because he's friends with a lot of them. Like,
Right.
he's
Okay,
in
no.
that
That's
world.
not what the issue was. The issue is that he is now like besties with the Obamas,
Ooh,
and he's hanging out with people like that.
yeah.
And he's out there simping for Kamala and all this shit. And it's just the rebellion is he is missing the point.
Right.
That is what it is.
Yeah.
That's why I'm like Roger Waters. Thank God for at least we got Pink
Seriously.
Floyd, or half of
And
Pink
I have
Floyd.
Susan Sarandon, and that's basically
Yeah.
it. That's all that's left.
And then there's some that are like almost there, and then they don't do it. Mark Ruffalo and John Cusack. I feel like
I was like, oh, out in the election, I'm like, oh, et tu, Mark Ruffalo. Et tu.
Yeah,
Like,
exactly.
it was just
And
brutal.
again, the ultimate problem when you get right down to it is if you are adjacent to the Democratic Party establishment in any way,
Yeah,
that's it. It's over.
it's over.
Like, don't. And I've been a registered Democrat forever, but I know where the line gets drawn.
Yeah,
Like, if you think that it's all about your career, and we don't have to get into it now, we definitely would love to have you back at some point.
Yeah.
But something as simple as AOC and her choices that she's made, only to find out that they are now blocking her from having any type of a leadership position. It's like, why did you not force the vote on Medicare for All 3 years ago? We at least would have gotten an idea of
You
why.
know why? Because she's AOC Pelosi.
I know. The yassification of AOC is like a modern day tragedy,
It
for
is.
lack of a better
is.
word.
It is. She is. She had an opportunity to be the friggin' Mockingjay, and instead she's turned into AOC Pelosi. It's very.
Yeah.
It's.
Well,
not.
I put out a tweet a little earlier that pissed off a few of the sycophantic progressives out
Oh,
there.
good.
And I just basically said, you know, you spent all this time focusing on your career only to
Right.
get blocked when you could have forced the vote on Medicare for All. And Lord knows what that would have translated into over the last few years. Chances are we never would have heard of Luigi Mangione. And there are people who got really pissed off at that. And I'm thinking,
a great
no,
point.
it's the truth.
Yeah.
Mangione is a result of you not fucking doing anything, of being a
Exactly.
bunch of fucking cuck pussies, which is what you all, with all due respect, this is a significant portion of the progressive left.
Yeah.
They do not understand that you have to be able to deal with your feelings being hurt. You have to be able to deal with
Mhm.
not sucking up to your leadership and not just caving anytime they tell you, well, we have to get behind so-and-so. Even in the face of genocide,
Yeah.
bullshit.
Where's the red line, folks? I mean, for real. I feel like no matter what, in Washington, D.C., they always get ground down into these machine politicians, no matter what angle they come at with to get.
Which is why the revolution is happening on the outside.
Exactly.
Thank you so much for coming on and chatting with us. Like, are you like, so what are you like, are you mostly Instagram or TikTok? I mean, I see you on Instagram because I'm not really on social media.
It just depends. And thank you guys for having me. I've really enjoyed our conversation, and I only recently found out about this awesome podcast, so I'll definitely be tuning in and keeping up with it. But it just depends on the day and the month, because it feels like I've been having to pivot to all these different apps. So I'm sort of on, like, I think I did the count. I'm like on like close to 15 different apps. But
oh wow,
because I get restricted, I get banned, I have to create backup pages. But yeah, I stream on YouTube, Twitch, and Twitter. I still call it Twitter. Every day. And then I also, I still post on Instagram and TikTok as well. So, yeah.
Okay. Yeah. I'm like, Peter's been handling my social media for like, it seems like 5 years now. And
But
I
I'm not
have,
a bitch. Trust me, I'm not. I'm just a very decent person.
Sure, thing, Peter. Yeah. No, definitely.
There have been some arguments, but like, but I am like, I have this voyeur account that I use on Instagram that I use for my little art business. So I don't post political stuff because that's just not my thing.
Yeah.
But that's where I see you, because I don't do I can't be on Twitter, and I can't be on Facebook, and I can't be on the people are too mean.
Oh my God. Yeah.
And I don't do mean, and I don't need that shit in my head.
It's toxic. Yeah. Lots of toxic people.
It's amazing how, women go after other women. like it's like a
I just want them to say it to my face.
Yeah.
That's again. See, here's Gen X.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
If you have something to say, you come say it to my face. I don't, because none of these people would say this shit if they were in my face. And
They really
that is
wouldn't.
why they're cowards. And that is the thing I cannot play with.
They're keyboard warriors, I call them.
amen.
I can't.
Yeah.
For conversation number 2, which we will hopefully do in the new year.
Yeah.
You may not have known this, but Jen did run for Congress against the ultimate Zio-Nazi of them all, Debbie Wasserman Schultz, and so
Oh, wow.
there is a lot to tackle there. But gives you a better
Yeah,
understanding.
just Google it.
Okay.
It's really, it's not as fascinating as I think Peter thinks it is, but that's how we got this. That's where we transitioned into this platform, was from that.
Oh,
That
okay.
was
From the
basis
momentum that was created
from
through
my
that
first campaign, and I had all this we had like 50 something thousand Twitter followers at the time, and I'm like, okay, what are we going to do with this? So we turned it into a podcast, and
Very
then
cool.
I use it as an opportunity to meet experts, authors. We have journalists. We get like veterans for peace. We get all sorts.
We get
of
Rothbone.
We
That's right.
yes, we do.
Best
So it's
decision you
just-
ever
yeah.
made, by the way.
I think so.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Let me tell you, all it's going to take is one of these like 60-second clips that ends up on TikTok and it goes viral. And then the next thing you know, Jen, we got another 1,000 subscribers.
Let me tell you something. I would love to be able to make money doing this. I would. I just we're it's just not at this point like a thing that like that can't. I don't know.
Let's do it.
I feel like
I'll
we've
make a
been
clip
so
of
spiteful.
this if you guys want me to share.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I mean, look, I love it, but this is what happened when we first started this show. One of the first things I did was have an Assange-a-thon, and I did this telethon for Julian Assange and had like a lot of people. We had Chris Hedges was on it. Like, I mean,
Love
Katie
him.
Halper co-hosted it with me. Like, it was just a really
Wow.
cool thing. And ever since the Assange-a-thon, we've been shadow banned. Like it's so difficult.
Yeah.
We've been demonetized.
Yep.
But it's been so slow for us because of that.
Yeah.
And then it didn't help when I gone on multi anti-Zio rants.
Right.
And that was pre October 7th that I started
Oh, wow.
Deconstructing Zionism series.
Wow.
But the one
The
thing
year
that you-
before, we started in October
Nice.
22.
Okay.
And so we've been very shadow banned.
Yeah. And that's why I feel like making authentic connections is going to help.
Yeah.
Yes.
The collaborations, like to overcome that,
Yes.
Well,
Yeah.
we're not just doing this to get paid. We actually believe in this mission. We're
Yeah.
actually
But
fighting.
I'd
for
like
this
to.
cause.
Yeah, of
and I don't
course.
feel bad about that.
Well-
And as Nina Turner says, just because we're progressive doesn't mean we take a vow of poverty.
No, absolutely
Thank you.
not. Absolutely
That's a great
not.
way of putting it.
But the reason we are doing it is because there is a mission. This isn't just
Yes.
let's just figure out how to make money off of people.
Right.
A la, I have to say him because he's the biggest scum of them all.
Who?
Ben Shapiro on the right and David Pakman.
David
on the
Pakman.
left.
He has such
Yeah.
a beef with David Pakman. He wants to basically.
Oh, I
he
want to
wants
punch him in his vagina.
I've gone
know.
after him several videos, like a year ago when he came out in defense of Israel.
He's a Zio-Nazi of the
Yeah.
upteenth degree, and he acts like he is.
acts like he's not, right?
But I don't know if you know this or not. All the way back in 2017, he was one of the sons of bitches out there saying that we need to go into Venezuela and take over their
That's
country.
insane, dude.
He was regime change in Venezuela supporting.
It's like
Yes.
the
They
world's
only
most
have
progressive
the
liberal, right?
25%, the largest crude oil supply on the planet
Yeah.
rests under Venezuela soil, and Maduro doesn't want to do business with us, and that is the
Go
only
figure.
reason that we have a problem. That's
Yeah.
it.
I love when they defend empire like that, all the war crimes that we do. It's just thank you for showing your whole ass, David Pakman.
Amen.
Yeah.
Brother, have a wonderful Christmas and New Year's.
Happy holidays.
To
Absolutely.
And we'll
Thank
be
you
talking
guys so
about-
much. I appreciate it.
I say happy solstice.
Happy solstice and happy solstice
Festivus.
right back. And Festivus.
No.
never mind. No, we can't do that. That's it. It's
Festivus
canceled.
anymore.
Festivus is canceled.
Exactly.
All
Thank
right.
you so much, Rathbone.
Thank you.
So
All
nice
right. Have a
to
great
meet
night. Thanks, guys.
appreciate you, brother.
Bye.
See you.
Bye-bye. So we are going to do one more segment.
Okay. And there we go. Oh. Was that good? I felt like that was nice. I got off, but I'm still on. Stream. Look, I'm actually, people can hear me, but they can't see me. You don't know what I'm doing right now. I could be flipping off the camera. Y'all just don't. Y'all don't know shit. Oh, hey, sorry. It's dark here. Hello, Six Shot. Hello, Pootie Tang, Igor, Born Ready, Too Old for Twitch, Timmers, Rami, Dabby Dabs, Igor, Booty Pants. Just kidding. That's not a person that's here. Cherry Bab, Riders on the Storm, Comrade Batty. Wow, Comrade Batty's here? That's fucking awesome. Okay. Shit, I'm blushing. Sir Sloth, thank you for being here. Dennis, really? Dennis showed up too? God damn it. And Sergio? Shit. Got a full house. Well, thank you guys for hanging out with me for a little bit. That was the live stream, a podcast with Generational Change. That was my inaugural episode. I hope you enjoyed it. And I hope that you find peace and love out there. And I hope that you subscribe to my backup page on YouTube, because that would be nice of you as well. Don't be a shithead, okay? Don't be shitty. Don't be a shitty person. Let's see, it's 7:30. It's 7:30 o'clock. I'm being asked to go get ice cream. Can you believe that? Thank you, Zanga. Just subscribe. There we go, Kevin. That's what I like to hear. Okay. You know, I was really just streaming to show the interview. And I'm going to take a short break. Is it already? It's already 7:30, huh? Wow, the time flies. Well, as far as podcasts go, I mean, that might have been one of my favorite ones to do. Aw, and Comrade Batty shared me on her story and said to tap in. That's so nice. Okay, enough about me. What do you think about me? Smoke weed, though? We don't do that. That's illegal. That's a war crime. That's bad. That's really bad. I am on the West Coast now, Kevin. Yes. That's right. I'm in Pacific time, baby. Heads are gonna roll. Heads are rolling, Timmers. Elton John came out against weed. Elton John came out? Wait, Elton John's still alive? It's 9:30 in Oklahoma. Damn. That's crazy, dude. You're like in another state in another time zone. Can you imagine for a second that if I were to go travel 3,000 miles to the east, I would be in a completely different time zone, but in the same country? From sea to shining sea. America, baby. It's a big country. Let's see. Amazig says it's 3:33 a.m. So he's somewhere in the Atlantic. He's drifting in a boat in the Atlantic. In the Atlantic Ocean, somewhere between New York and London. I think that's what that means. Where you at, Six Shot? You feel so special. And I feel your mom. Just kidding. Sort of. It's dark and smoky. 7:34 p.m. local time. That's right. Did we get any subs? Did anyone sub to the stream? If nobody subbed to the stream, then I'm out of here. I'm getting the fuck out of here, dude. I'm gonna go get some ice cream, okay? That's why I don't fuck with y'all, chat. Johnny Ace gifted 1 sub. Thank you, Johnny Ace. Okay. All right. Well, we'll end the stream, and then that podcast will then be up on Twitch. People can go watch it. What? People can go criticize it and talk bad about me and make their whole page about me, because that's important. You're the one from Oklahoma. Why does your mom support me? Well, I think that's pretty obvious. I'm very talented. That's why. All right, thank you guys. I appreciate you. I'll be back tomorrow, okay? Never forget to remember 9/11. And you love Jesus. Yeah, I am prepped to go, Amazig. You hit a year? What does that mean? What's up, Iggy the Fig? Tanker Tomatillo? You subbed it for a year. Wow, Timmers. Thank you so much. Timmers is an OG, okay? Y'all best recognize. Thank you for your patronage. Please go subscribe to the backup page on YouTube. That would be oh so helpful. So, and tell your mother hello for me, and tell her that I'll be calling her soon, okay?